Welcome to the Internet of Bugs. And if this looks familiar, you've come to the right video. My name is Carl. I've spent 35 years as a software professional, and this video is about how AI is really impacting the job market for developers. The hype on YouTube these days is that AI is going to replace all the software engineers. I think that's crap, and I've done several videos about it, and I've got more in the works. So subscribe if you want to see those. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Now, today, we're talking about what AI is actually doing to cause a problem and what you might do about it. The problem with job hunting these days is the number of people that are using tools to auto-customize their resumes, to match the keywords in the job postings, auto-generate cover letters that make it seem like there's a person doing the applying, and then auto-submit their job applications. And that means that as soon as a job posting opens up, a whole bunch of automated tools spam the heck out of it, and employers end up being completely inundated with applicants, cover letters, and resumes. This is happening for all kinds of positions, but it seems especially bad for developer ones, probably because developers are more willing than other professions to turn to AI tools to try to get an advantage. And it only takes a few hundred people running auto-applying bots targeting keywords relevant to you to ruin the whole thing for everyone in your space. I'll put some links down in the description with more details about this. But the short version is, it's a mess right now, and it's taking a while for the industry to react and figure out what to do about it. If that wasn't bad enough, to make things even worse, more and more employers are using AI to try to screen the applicants and the resumes that come in. So AI is screwing up your ability to get your resume in front of the right person twice. Once by flooding all of their screens with resumes of other people, and again by filtering out your resume because it doesn't have all the desired keywords in the right order with the right frequency like it would if you paid for the AI service. This is the real impact of AI. AI services are sold to companies as a solution to a problem like screening applicants to make sure they have the right keywords. And then AI is sold to applicants as a solution to submitting jobs to make sure their resumes and cover letters are customized to get past the AI screeners. Both sides are less happy, hiring slows way down, but neither side can stop paying or they'll get swamped or blocked by the AI on the other side of the conversation. The only people that are better off in this situation are the companies providing the AI services. It's a giant scam to extract money from everyone involved, and the only way to win is not to play. What that means for you is that, at least at the moment, the way that job hunting has worked for the last 10 to 15 years is not working anymore. It's going to be slower. It's going to require you to be patient. I'm sorry about that, but this is just the world the AI companies have made for us, and we just have to put jobs in it. Now, I'm not going to lie and say I know exactly how this is going to shake out. I don't. Companies need to hire. And so something is going to have to happen, but I don't think anyone right now knows exactly what that's going to be. But I have a guess at how things might work, at least in the short term, based on how we used to do things. So back in the long ago, back before LinkedIn was really a thing, we used to get jobs the old-fashioned way, by actually talking to people. I know that sounds scary, but sometimes it's just what it takes to get around the AI scammers. I joined LinkedIn in 2004. I think I got my first job through LinkedIn in 2011, but I've gotten a bunch of jobs that way since then. But at least for the time being, I think that's run its course. But it turns out I got a lot of jobs and a lot of other people got a lot of jobs back before LinkedIn and even before the internet was really a thing. So let's talk about how that used to go. The way to get a job has always eventually involved talking to a human, because at least so far, it's always been the humans that made the final hiring decisions. All LinkedIn, Monster, Indeed, and the like really did was to provide a convenient intermediate step for you to figure out which humans to talk to and for those humans to figure out which applicants to talk to. In other words, you. Talking to an actual human is going to be even more important now because on both sides of the initial contact these days, it's just a bunch of AIs wasting everyone's time and money. So the next question is, how do you get in contact with the right humans? Before we start, a couple of quick caveats. First off, I'm going to be talking about the US market. That's where I live and that's what I know. That's what I'm going to be talking about. It may or may not be at all useful to those of you that are not in the US. I'm sorry about that. I just don't have any experience outside the US, and I don't want to pretend that I do. And I don't want you to follow my advice if it turns out that I'm completely wrong about the way things work in your country. It might work. Humans have some things in common, but I have absolutely no idea if it might be relevant to you non-US folks or not. Second caveat is that what I'm going to talk about is not going to work nearly as well for remote jobs. Remote jobs inherently have the problem that it's harder to make a person-to-person contact over long distances, so the AI job services can mess everything up a lot easier. That said, you may be able to supply some of these strategies for remote work, and I wish you the best of luck. If you only want remote jobs, though, I'd recommend you jump over the next chapter and go to the chapter about voice calls. Okay, strategy number one is to find the places where the people that you want to talk to physically are and go to those places. A great source for this is meetup.com, although there may be other sites or organizations in your area. I ran a local meetup group here in Austin, Texas, where I lived for 7 years until COVID killed it off, although it had been dropping off over some time before that. Early on, we had a lot of recruiters that would show up to the meetings, just hoping to meet people. That eventually stopped, but my guess is more and more of that's going to happen again. So look at where the meetup groups are in your area. Look at the organizations and the job fairs and the conferences and the other groups of folks that do the kinds of tech that you do, and find where they get together and try to meet up with them. Those meetup groups are starting to have face-to-face get-togethers again. Finally, just in time to be useful for this. Now, there's a perception amongst people that are newer to the industry that there's a lot of competition between people that do the same job. There is sometimes a little of that, but in my experience, I found that most places that hire software engineers hire teams, and knowing the other folks in your area that you might be on a team with is very useful. That way, if someone ends up needing a new member to their team and there's someone there that you've met, that might give you a leg up. So don't think of the other folks at the meetups as competition. Think of them as potential future coworkers. The other thing that happens around meetups is that when a group of people that have a particular skill set get together, recruiters that want to find people with that skill tend to follow. That has not been nearly as true lately because most of that stuff moved to the internet. And especially since the pandemic, all of that stuff stopped completely. My guess is a lot of that's going to start back up. And the reason that I think that is because I'm guessing that in most HR departments and in most recruiting firms, there are people who are old enough that they remember how we used to do it. And when they realize the new internet way is falling apart, some of them are going to say, let's go back to trying the old way, at least for the time being, until we figure something else out. Next thing, this is going to sound weird, but hear me out. You can call recruiters yourself. I know that over the last couple of decades, recruiters have gotten a bad rap for sending you email out of the blue or calling out of the blue or bugging you, and especially for contacting you about jobs that don't actually have much to do with your actual skills at all. It's often become a joke about getting called by a recruiter. But there are a lot of recruiters out there that actually do a really good job. And especially if you're unemployed, you don't really have much to lose. There are bad recruiters, and you should avoid the ones that appear to be just spamming out a bunch of requests without mentioning what the job is or what skills it needs. But there are a lot of recruiters out there that you can actually learn a lot from. Although earlier I said call, email might work too. But in my experience, actually getting someone on the actual phone will work better because they'll know that they're dealing with a real person and not just another time-wasting AI bot. If you need to use just email for some reason, try to target it as a specific recruiter's work address instead of just a generic email address for a company. Most recruiters that I know, and I've known a lot of them over the decades, are people that like talking to people. And they especially like talking to people that understand the kinds of technologies that they are recruiting people to work on. Keep in mind that often recruiters know that they're looking for someone with particular buzzwords, but they're not developers, and they don't necessarily have a good understanding of what those buzzwords mean or how to use them in a sentence or that kind of thing. And they know that makes them sound stupid, and they hate that. So being able to have a conversation with a recruiter about what a particular buzzword in your field means is usually valuable information to them. And in return, you can usually get information about what kinds of skills, what kinds of buzzwords are particularly hot at the moment in this particular area, and what kinds of things someone in your position might be able to do to stand out at the particular moment. Remember that although you might know a lot more than them about what tech is good or bad or popular or not, they know a lot more than you about what skills companies are actually wanting to pay for at the moment and what they're having difficulty finding. And that's very valuable information for you. So how do you cold call a recruiter? I would say start with Googling recruiting firms in your area or an area that you'd like to work, and then look at their websites. Most recruiting websites have jobs posted on them. They're usually not anywhere close to all the jobs they're currently looking for. But by looking at what kinds of jobs that recruiting firm is looking for, you can find whether or not that recruiting firm deals in the kind of tech or development that you're skilled at. Then most of the websites have a phone number or fill out this form and we'll give you a call kind of pages. I would say you're probably better off calling the phone number than just filling out the form, or at least that's been my experience. You won't necessarily get to talk to a recruiter immediately. Sometimes you end up getting voicemail and end up leaving a message, and that's fine. Just tell them who you are, how they can contact you, and what kind of work you're looking for. At least in my experience, most recruiters like talking on the phone. It's not the kind of job that a person would likely choose to do if they didn't like talking on the phone. So a lot of recruiters would rather respond to a voicemail than respond to a web form. Plus, if they hear your voice on the phone, they know you're not just some spam bot that filled out contact form on their website. A voice on their voicemail isn't guaranteed not to be a bot, but the odds are they aren't getting AI-generated voicemails, at least not yet. When you actually talk to them, tell them that you're a developer and give them a really brief description of what you do. Like, I'm a full-stack developer, I'm a JavaScript developer, I'm a front-end developer, whatever. And then tell them that you'd like to know what kinds of skills and jobs in your area they are looking to fill. As you have that conversation, they will probably start asking you more about your background and what kinds of job you're looking for. That's cool. Take that opportunity to talk about your experience. Let them ask questions, but talk to them as if you were talking to a sibling or a friend who's not into computers, or at least not into computers the way you are. And when you talk about what you did someplace or what side project you're working on, mention the technologies and mention the buzzwords, but describe what you did not in terms of references to a bunch of other buzzwords, but in terms of how a non-professional would describe it. And generally, they will find that very helpful. It's probably not the case that the first recruiting firm you call will happen to have a job that exactly matches the kind of stuff you do. That would just be too big a coincidence. But at least once you get put in their database or once you get fresh in their mind, they're a lot more likely to be talking to a client and see a position and think, hey, maybe that person I talked to the other day might be a good fit for that. It's also useful to talk to more than one recruiting firm at a time, although there is an issue. Know that recruiters get paid usually based on a fraction of the salary that they place a person at. So if you have two recruiters that both put you in the same job, only one of them is going to get paid for it, and the other one's going to get annoyed. It's not unusual for recruiters to be searching for a position and talk to someone and find out that person has already been submitted to that position by a different recruiter. That's just the price of doing business, and they might be disappointed, but they don't generally get upset about that. What they get upset about is when they think they have the right to represent you for a given job, and then they learn that you actually got submitted to that job by somebody else. Just make it clear to them that you are calling around trying to find jobs and that you'd be happy to talk to the recruiter about a specific job. And if they have one, please to let you know if something comes up that matches your skills, but don't give them blanket permissions to be completely in charge of finding a job for you. In those conversations, a lot of times what you can find out is what technologies, what frameworks, what buzzwords that recruiter is currently having trouble finding people for. And that gives you an idea of what kinds of things might be worth learning, what kinds of side projects you might want to work on, and what kinds of technologies you might want to steer your current job toward, and what kinds of things are marketable and what's really useful information to have. Because if it turns out there's a specific skill that a lot of jobs are looking for that they haven't found many candidates that have, that's an indication that you can read up on that and play around with it a little and maybe do a little side project on it. And then the next time you talk to someone, you can be able to go, oh, well, I haven't actually done that for work, but I did do a side project with it. Let me tell you about that. And if they're having trouble finding someone who's got that buzzword in their experience, then they'll probably be willing to put you in front of the client, even if it's not a tech you've worked with professionally, but just one you worked with on the side. Unfortunately, this isn't a fast solution. It's worked for me for years, but it's not nearly as efficient as the LinkedIn pipeline was back before the AI people ruined it. So that's my advice. To recap, 1, feel free to submit your resume to jobs online, but don't expect it to get you anywhere. 2, you're probably better off looking for hybrid or on-site jobs in your area rather than purely remote jobs. Although people's circumstances are different and sometimes you don't have a choice. 3, find places like meetups or job fairs or trade shows in your area that are relevant to your job experience, and go to them and talk to people. Making actual human contact becomes much more powerful in a world of money-sucking, time-wasting AI services. 4, contact recruiting firms or firms that recruit in either the area of the country or the area of technology that you are in, and call them and ask them what kinds of skills they currently have clients looking for. There's no guarantee they'll have stuff for you, but they're in a better position to know than you are if all you're doing is doom scrolling job listings. And even if they don't have a job for you now, knowing recruiters often turns out to be useful later. 5, never give a recruiter blanket permission to submit you just anywhere they want to on your behalf. Make sure and tell them that you'd be happy to talk to them about particular specific positions if they have something that might be a fit for you and that they wanted to submit you for. Tell them that you're calling around and talking to other companies and other people, and that you wouldn't want to have them waste their time submitting you to some place that you've already been in contact with. 6, use those conversations with recruiters to find out what skills are valuable in your area of the country or area of technology, and take that as a sign that it might be useful to read up on that, to learn more about that, and maybe do a side project on that. Because if they're having trouble finding people who do that, that's an indication that there's an opportunity there that you might be able to take advantage of. So I wish you luck. I know it's hard, but just keep in mind that there's a ton of software in the world, and there are a ton of opportunities for companies and investors to make money with software. So there will always be a need for software to get created and written. If you're afraid that all this is pointless because AIs will be taking all the coding jobs in addition to ruining all the hiring processes, well then 1, I have no idea why you watch this video to the end. And 2, on this screen now should be a playlist of videos about why my experience tells me AI cannot and will not be replacing all the programmers in the foreseeable future. So that's what I have for you in this video. If you have questions that you'd like to hear an experienced developer's perspective on, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe if you want to see more, and most of all, never forget that the internet is full of bugs. Let's be careful out there. Thanks for watching.